Welcome to Networking RX, a podcast devoted to helping business professionals like you enhance your networking skills in order to become more proficient giving and receiving quality business referrals and improving the overall quality of your life and the lives of those around you. The Networking RX podcast is a production of AmSpirit Business Connections, an organization whose mission is to empower business success through networking.
I remember when I was first started into the private practice of law, I was in what is now a chapter of what is now AmSpirit Business Connections. And somebody had a referral for me. I was all excited. I didn't know anything about it. This is all before email, before even cell phones, so communication was really, you got surprised like that. Hey, somebody's got a referral for you. You didn't even know. It felt like Christmas morning, presents under the tree. At any rate, he came up to me and he said, "Hey, I'm president of the Ohio Business Brokers Association. I want you to come out and speak." And I was being gracious and I said, "Thank you." Outwardly, I said, "Thank you." Inwardly, it's like, "You son of a bitch. I don't need to write a speech. I don't need to give a talk. I want clients." But I graciously went and did it because I didn't really have a lot of clients. And it was probably one of the best things that ever happened to me because I was standing in front of 20, 30 people. These were business brokers. I was a business attorney. They help people buy and sell businesses. To this day, I am still connected to that organization. Know the president. We are good friends. I don't practice law anymore, but there are still opportunities that come from that. Referrals I'm giving into it. Referrals they're giving to me. Opportunity they'll have me out to speak from time to time. Wow, what a lesson. At any rate, and I share that a lot, but today I have a guest on here, Lisa Reed. She's the founder of Get Speaking Gigs Now and CEO of the International Speaker Network. And she has a mission to transform public speaking into a soul-filling business growth strategy. She has been on over 600 stages, authored 700 books, and this is not her first podcast. She had one earlier today. And so she's going to share with us her journey, but when she's not helping people with respect to speaking, she's a mom, wife, devoted dog lover, and she lives her passion. Her passions are rock concerts and dance fitness classes. Favorite band? Who's your favorite band?
Oh, that's a tough one, but I just saw Justin Timberlake the other night. He's not my favorite, but I would say like hard rock band, I would say Def Leppard. It just depends. Fleetwood Mac. I mean, there's so many great bands to choose from.
Okay. All right. So kind of older bands. My wife's Bon Jovi. I grew up in a small town. We had everything on the radio. So we had country, we had everything. So I never really kind of got into any of that, but
I definitely like pop and rock for sure.
Okay. Well, good. You're out in California, you probably get a lot of that.
I do, but I grew up in Alaska, so similar where not necessarily every type of music made its way up there.
Yeah, I remember, and we'll get into a conversation about speaking here in a minute, but I remember as a kid, the closest really big town to us was Marquette, Michigan, and that's not really that big, but they would have people come up there, not the really big people, but it was always like Monday night. So it's like, all right, we'll do a Monday night concert, or we'll do a concert in Marquette, Michigan, but it's got to be Monday night. Anyhow, get speaking gigs now. How did you stumble into this and 600 stages?
Well, I will clarify. I haven't written 700 books, but I've been in 7.
Oh, I'm sorry, 7 books.
Just in case.
Well, you get rolling when you're talking, I tell my wife all the time, don't listen to what I say, listen to what I'm thinking.
There we go. I knew what you meant.
Yeah.
So I started speaking when I was 40, which was back in 2013. And I started with 0 speaking gigs, 0 clients, 0 email list, right? And I called up a friend of mine who I had met through networking, which I'm so excited to be on the show years ago. But you keep those relationships, and people pick up the phone. They'll do stuff for you when you have good relationships with people. And I said, "Hey, do you know anyone who might have a group that needs a speaker?" And she said, well, I have a group. In fact, I have two. Why don't you come and speak to my groups? She did not know it was my first talk. I did not share that information, but I knew I was going to do okay. I mean, I knew the material.
Sure. Yeah.
There were about 10 women in the room, all business leaders, and 3 of them signed up for my offer, which was a $300 workshop, and then went on to spend thousands and thousands of dollars at the company that I was representing and got a lot of massive growth. I mean, they really, really loved it. So it was a very positive experience. That was the first talk I gave, like as a professional speaker. So it's not as hard as people think, but there's things that I did do to prepare to get there. And then I
Yeah.
just rinsed and repeated over and over again.
Yeah. No, it's you obviously took a different approach to it. I kind of was going in kicking and screaming.
Yeah, you're like trying to get the cat into the cat box to go to the vet, right? You're like, I will not.
Yeah, it's like I don't, I mean, I was mad, but I did really, in hindsight, again, it was a great opportunity, and I seek things out. Well, you get to a point, you get asked to come back, for all sorts of things. It's
It is
hey,
one of it's one of those things where you do one and then someone says, well, hey, I have a group. Would you come and speak for that one? And it snowballs. So it's an easy way to keep the flow going. I would say it's an easy way to have a consistent network building strategies, lead strategies, client strategies. I'm always meeting new people, always meeting new people.
Yeah. How many different talks do you have?
Over the years, quite a few, but
Okay.
usually my preference, and this isn't everyone's, but my preference is to have one main one that I like to give, and then the other ones kind of go on the shelf and I can pull them out if needed. But I find it easier to just focus on one than I have. And I'm always evolving and changing. As entrepreneurs, I think a lot of people can relate to that. We're always just fine tuning, refining, or you get a new message. A lot of times people think you need to have 3 to get started. I say it depends, because if you're brand new and you now have the pressure of needing 3 different talks, that's 3 different sets of slides. That's 3 different times you're going to different material you're going to need to practice on. And that can feel really overwhelming if you've never even done a talk yet. So I say,
Yeah.
like, get one dialed in, go give it a bunch of times till you're just bored to tears, and then maybe bring up another one,
Yeah. I heard Bob Berg speak in the late 90s. People aren't familiar with Bob Berg. He wrote The Go-Giver. And then I heard him about, I don't want to say it was 20 years later. It was definitely 15 years later. And he gave the same talk. And it was, it's kind of like seeing a movie over again, right? It's like, oh, I didn't pick up on that, right? I missed that. And it's always good to get a good refresher. There was somebody who invited me out to speak just a couple months ago. And he had me speak 6 months earlier. I'm like, well, Ken, what do you want me to talk about? Well, do the same one you did before. It's like, I just did it. It's like, yeah, but I always have new people coming in, and, people forget the stories. Or I have new stories.
People would forget that they would say, I know I've seen you before. I know there's a trick, because I used to do this kind of a trick, experiential thing in the talks, and people wouldn't remember, even though they'd seen it 3 times. They're like, oh yeah, I knew there was something at the end, I can't remember what it was.
Yeah.
So there's not a hard and fast rule, and it also depends on your strategy, on what you're trying to do and who you're reaching out to. If they're only going to see you once a year, they're likely not to remember, or it's going to be different people in the room.
Yeah. No, good. So that's how you got started. I mean, it's that simple to, when you talk to other people, hey, do what I did, or I would imagine it's probably, you have a whole program around this. It's probably a little more refined.
It's a little bit more than that. And it's more about making sure that you get your questions answered. You have a clear strategy moving forward. So you're not just guessing and trying to throw spaghetti at the wall, hoping it works and sticks. I think it's like a fast track. Like, I had a lot of blood, sweat, and tears those first couple of years. I was cold calling my little heart out, Google searching till my fingers to the bone and going down rabbit holes. And I don't really wish that on anyone. So I think, well, can we skip a lot of that and get you connected to the right people with the right message so that you can use speaking to build your client base, right? Or sell your products or services, whatever that is. But a lot of times you could speak and still not get any clients. So we want to make sure that your time is well spent, that it's valuable time, not just going through the motions. And that takes some learning and guidance.
Yeah, no, it does. It's what's the saying in advertising? 50% of your ad dollars are wasted.
Oh, ouch.
Well, but you don't know what 50%, so you have to spend it, right? You don't know what's going to work. That's the adage in advertising. And I think much of that is true in the world of networking. You don't know who's going to pan out for you.
That's true. That's true. I think there's like you have to be willing, and I love entrepreneurs, right? And business owners. Like, you have to be willing to just kind of put it on the line. Like, you could say, oh, networking doesn't work and I'm never going to go. Well, then it's definitely not going to work if you do not go anywhere. But gosh, if you go to something and you meet people and you're open to having connections, I don't know where I would be without all that value. I've met just the most amazing people over the years. And this is even when I had a completely different business. They're still humans. They're still people that care about you or care about me, and I care about them. That doesn't go away just because you change business.
Yeah. Well, when you reached out to that very first person, your friend, that relationship that you had that you were reconnecting into, you didn't know, right? You were it was kind of a, hey, I know you well enough. I'm comfortable, safe enough that I can ask this question.
Absolutely.
And you were lucky enough to, well, I don't want to say lucky. It worked out that it was that way. I have always found, well, not always, I guess I hate to be so strong about it, but a lot of times the people the people I think are going to pay off the biggest don't. And the people that, well, what the heck, I'll ask. They're the ones that kind of really shock you with, well, I know somebody, and I don't really understand why.
Yeah, it's not always the most extroverted person. It could be one of the tips I offer people when they're new to networking is, or maybe a more introverted personality or shyer personality, is like, look for the connector in the room. That's the person who knows everyone. That's the person who's probably greeting everyone, buzzing around the room, talking to people, saying, well, how can I support you? What can I do for you? Who can I introduce you to? Those are your connectors. That's a good bet. If you bet on a connector, doing pretty good. They may not be able to personally help you, but they can find someone who could probably help you.
Yeah. Because, well, you just need that connector to get you to one or two people.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah. And it's a lot easier then. You don't have to work so hard.
Yeah. No, I had this conversation with a franchisee the other day. I just said, hey, here's somebody, you know what? Don't get your hopes up, because it might not work out with that person. But if they can connect you to somebody else or a couple people, then they've done their job.
Right.
So it's not your job to find the person who, like with your story, it's not your job to find the person who's got the opportunity for you. It's your job to find the person who knows the person.
Absolutely. And have you ever heard that phrase, stepping over a dollar to pick up a dime?
I haven't heard that phrase, but something similar, bending over to pick up dimes when dollars are flying over your head.
There you go.
Yeah. Same thing.
And I think sometimes when people go to a networking event with this expectation of like, oh, I'm going to get so much business, actually connect with people and creating those deeper relationships, invest the time in those relationships. I'm like, you don't actually know what access people get, but you can't just expect them to hand it over when they don't know you at all, right? But you just dig a little bit deeper, wait a little bit longer, invest in those relationships. That's where the real gold is, to me, deeper connections. And for me, hundreds of times over years.
how do you network smarter? What advice would you have for somebody?
I think it's important to go where I call it network dating. Like if you don't have a network that you're already attached to or that you are a member of,
Mm-hmm.
I would start network dating. Like what fits into your lifestyle? Where do you think your prospective referral partners might be hanging out? Go visit those places and see how you feel. Talk to a couple of the members. What kind of results are they getting?
Right.
Do you want to keep coming back? And you could go to one chapter and think, oh, well, this organization, oh, they're not for me. But another chapter, an alternate chapter on another day might be exactly what you're looking for.
Yeah.
So
No, that's
sometimes
true.
people make a decision too quickly.
No, they do. Yeah, they do. And it might be the day, it might be the person they encountered. It could be a lot of things. And what I like to tell people about networking is you can't judge it in the moment, right? So you go to a networking event and it might feel like, okay, that really went nowhere. But 3 months later, it could be, you could hit gold because you talk to somebody and it may not have seemed like the right time, but you got on their radar somehow or another.
Absolutely. Yeah, I think sometimes there's a little impatience, like I want to get whatever I want to get right away. And you do, they're human. So you want to make, and you're a human, you want to make sure that you're connecting with the people and aligning yourself with people who you like being around, enjoy being around, and who are in the same race as you. In the network I have, the International Speaker Network, which is for speakers, I say, we're all on the playground. Just imagine we're all the kids on the playground. We're at recess. You don't have to play with every kid on the playground.
Yeah.
Find your friends. That's it. That's that simple.
No, I agree. Um, you said there for a while you were cold calling. Can you remember the point where you said enough? I'm done with this, or
Yeah.
was it a gradual thing?
Well, I would say it was gradual because I figured out a system that made it easier.
Mm,
And it involved someone that I had met through my network, and she and I became referral partners. And I've had those kind of relationships over the years, and some fizzle out and some sound like a great idea at the beginning and then it just doesn't go anywhere. And then some have lasted longer and so forth. But when you find that one special partner, man, it's a game changer. And
hmm
I actually have a name for it that I didn't know. I mean, I didn't name it till a few years later after we had already referred each other hundreds of speaking engagements, but I call it the speaker soulmate system, where you
mm,
like find someone who speaks at a similar frequency as you. You find, obviously, got to know, like, and trust them, but doesn't mean you need to know them for a long time. You just get to know them, right?
hmm
Try it out. Do they have similar core values as you? Are they going to show up? Are they going to do the thing that they said they were going to do, and they're going to do it well, right? You're putting your name on it. So it's got to make sense. And then for speakers, the other kicker is finding someone who speaks at a similar to a similar audience, but isn't your competition. It
Right.
just makes it super easy to refer. And this obviously you could plunk that right into a business referral relationship. But when you meet someone like that at a networking event, that can exponentially increase your business. And you don't need hundreds of people.
No,
You just need a couple.
no. Yeah, I had this conversation with the guy off of LinkedIn, somebody I met on LinkedIn, and there's millions of people on LinkedIn. You only need a dozen or a few
Yeah.
dozen good people. So I don't know. So I like that soulmate, the
Yeah. And
notion of a soulmate.
that's when I stopped cold calling as much as when we started getting into our groove. Then she was working on her stuff. I'm working on my stuff. Then we would swap for the most part, not 100%, but when it was relevant.
hmm
And all of a sudden, we both doubled what we were doing without having to double the work that we were doing. And I thought, well, howdy doody, this is a great solution. Why
Yeah.
didn't I think of this sooner? So now I have a few other soulmates as well. And it just makes it easier for everybody. And I stopped cold calling. And when I say cold calling, I mean cold emailing, researching,
Sure. Yeah. Cold outreach. Yeah.
yeah, cold outreach. There we go. I
Well,
stopped doing that
well,
years ago.
you just get busy. You get busy doing the things that things that are working.
Yeah.
That's the way my journey off of that addiction, if you will. You just get busy doing other things, and you get much more satisfaction too, right?
Yeah. And I think in networking too, you learn how to ask for what referrals are great for you, right? Like, and there's that training. You're not born out of the womb knowing how to ask for a referral, or
No.
ask for introductions. So it makes sense to learn that, practice it, and then do it.
Let's shift gears here. I want to give you an opportunity to talk about Get Speaking Gigs Now. The type of, I would imagine, it has to do with speaking. Or you can talk about either. Get Speaking Gigs Now, International Speaker Network. How can the audience help you? How can they get a hold of you?
Absolutely. Well, Get Speaking Gigs Now is my company, and I teach other entrepreneurs how to use speaking to grow their business. So you got to do sales and marketing. We might as well find a soul-filling way to do it. And for a lot of us, speaking is that strategy.
Mm-hmm.
So we figure out, what are you going to speak on? We get your talk going. I call it Get Your Talk Ready to Rock. Where are you going to speak? How do you reach out to those people? What do you need to have in place to get there? How do you actually start having a call to action from the stage? All those things so that you can get booked consistently for the rest of your career, as long as you want to stay in your business. And so that's what we do in the Speakers Training Academy. And if you want some tips, I'll share some tips with your audience. They can go to getspeakinggigsnow.com/tips. And that will give you 5 tips to get more speaking gigs, and just goes right into your inbox.
I will put that in the show notes.
Thank you.
And that's a great way to get a hold of you as well through that.
Yeah, they can find me on getspeakinggigsnow.com.
Okay.
And then with the International Speaker Network, that actually started that group before my company, because I was an entrepreneur looking for speaking engagements.
Mm-hmm.
And here's the thing is that, guess who knows where all the speaking engagements are? The speakers.
Yeah.
You might as well hang out with them. And I learned a lot from them, and I give a lot to the community as well. And it's a great place for people who, when they're out networking and they say, I would like to have a speaking engagement or be on a podcast. Those are the type of people who should be looking at the International Speaker Network, because that's our focus, is that type of a referral and introduction. And that's at ispeakernetwork.com.
All right. Well, I appreciate your time today.
Yeah, thank you.
Thanks for joining us on the Networking RX podcast. Please put what you've learned into action today and let us know if you have questions, comments, or ideas for future topics. You can email them to us at podcast@amspirit.com. That's AmSpirit.com. Finally, so you never miss an episode, be sure to subscribe to the Networking RX podcast through iTunes, Overcast, or however you receive your podcasts. Now get out and network with someone.
The Networking RX podcast is the copyright production of AmSpirit Business Connection. All rights reserved.